This week on the WriterCon podcast.
My one piece of advice to writers would be never, and I mean never, edit the story while you are writing the story.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, best-selling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Lara Bernhardt, award-winning author of the Wantland Files book series.
Thank you, Jesse Ulrich. And hey there, writers. Thanks for joining us. Lara is on the road this time, but she'll be back soon. As we're releasing this, tax day is coming up all too soon. This is a perpetual problem for writers, probably any artist or freelancer. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's got, Jesse's agreeing, anybody who's got unpredictable income stream and of course, the IRS comes down really hard on the self-employed. So you got, you got 2 days, Jesse. You got your taxes ready to go.
Listen, we're obviously recording this before tax day, and so for anyone who's worried, I've begun working on my taxes, which is Michelle and I both being self-employed, but also having like part-time W-2 jobs. Our taxes are interesting, but since we both work from home, I will squeeze as much out of our taxes as we can, as far as this office, for example.
I was about to say, every room in your house should be a home office. There's a deduction, right?
Yep. And I need the internet for my business, so part of that comes. Right. And I'm a homeowner now, so I can write off the interest from our mortgage, which is nice. So
that's good.
You know, I do it. Good. Hopefully.
Michelle is a budding writer, so you could theoretically, who I am confident will publish soon, so you could be deducting the cost of books, movies, a lot of other things.
Oh yeah, I haven't thought about that. Research. Oh my God, I haven't thought about research.
Research trips.
Trips. We're going to Iceland in May, and we're stopping in Boston because that's one of the cheaper places to fly to Iceland from. And her book takes place in Boston, so I'll probably write off that flight for next year.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous. Barry's been to Iceland too. What is the deal? Why has everybody been to Iceland but me?
I don't know. It's the cheapest place to get to from America, and it's apparently delightful. I'll let you know more in our May sessions. But
we'll all expect a report.
Oh yes.
All right. Our interview today is with Jake Lynch, an author who specializes in spiritual fiction and action adventure novels. He's the author of Broken to Beautiful, a coming-of-age story about a high school girl named Crystal who struggles to find her place in the world and to find hope, as many people do at one time or another in their lives. We'll talk to him about this fascinating book, but first, the news. All right, our first news story. Entangled Publishing has signed a dozen self-published romance authors. Some of you are probably listening to this headline and thinking, so let me spell it out. Entangled Publishing, an established publishing house with many major authors, including Rebecca Yarros, has now signed a dozen self-published authors, people who have published on their own, but now, perhaps for the first time, are signing with a publishing company, which is different. You may remember back in our start of the year predictions episode, I predicted that we'd be seeing a evolution of self or small publishing, and for that matter, changes in traditional publishing as well. And I think this is an example of it. A traditional publisher partnering with self-published authors for their mutual benefit. And this is Entangled, an independent publisher, true, but distributed by Macmillan, one of the big five. And they have, and as I said, they published the world-famous romantasy author Rebecca Yarros, who had the best-selling book of 2023. And now they've picked up a dozen romance authors acquiring the print rights to their books. I suppose the theory is they're doing just fine with ebooks. But how do you get a book in the bookstores? And the answer is this deal with Entangled Publishing. Most of these 12 authors write series books. So even though there are 12 authors, we're talking about something like 80 titles, some of which have been published before, but they're going to get a fresh read, which probably means a fresh edit by someone and new cover art. So, Jesse, we said this was the year everything hits a new plateau. Is this a sign of that? Do you think this is pointing the way to the future?
Yeah, I feel like there's an analogy in like sports or something, or like maybe it like movie and TV writing, where like you take someone who is successful at something in sort of the independent thing, and then you use the companies that also want to make money off this, or like they're doing well without us. I bet they can do even better with us. And so it's like moving up from like the minor leagues to the major leagues almost, I guess, is the first analogy that came to my mind. And so,
that's the way, well, at least in print books. I mean, part of the, like I said, they're doing fine in ebooks, but that won't get you in the bookstore, which granted is a 1-digit percentage of overall sales these days, but still it'd be nice to have. I remember, and this has been a while, Hugh Howey, one of the first self-published authors to break out big, made a deal, I think with Simon & Schuster. And that was shocking at the time because he was just giving them his print books. And they wanted everything, but he was like, no, I'm doing just fine with digital. You can have the print rights. That was something that I don't think publishers had ever agreed to before. And now it looks like it might be on the path to becoming more commonplace. So that's pretty huge.
Yeah. And we do know that younger generations are more into physical copies of books. Like, you know, it goes in waves, right? So
right. Well, they brought back vinyl, and I've now got, as you know, a wall full of vinyl over there and a wall full of books here. Okay, news story number 2. Spotify, which you may have heard, is offering an audiobook access tier. If you followed this podcast, you know Spotify has been trying to deal with audiobooks for a while, or trying to figure out how to monetize it, and what they've done so far hasn't worked so well. But you may remember on the last episode, we talked about Brendan Sanderson and his negotiations with Audible, which have now produced a better royalty deal for everyone. Well, Spotify has now added a standalone audiobook access tier. It's something separate. If you want this, you're going to pay $9.99 a month, and you get about 15 hours of monthly listening time, 15 hours from a catalog of 200,000 titles. Of course, while you're there, I bet that they would Spotify would allow you to listen to some music and other things as well. Jesse, you've produced many audiobooks. Does this look like a good deal to you?
Well, let me just say the books I read are longer than 15 hours, so it doesn't seem like a great deal to me.
Anything in science fiction would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just about, or its new romantasy novels are huge.
That's true. What worries me about this is, one, like, the more subscription-based things that are out there for books, I feel like the less authors get from it. And I worry about when Spotify is going to pay authors, right?
And how and
how. And like like Brandon Sanderson just fought this battle with Audible to get more things, and now he's going to have to fight Spotify, right? It's just like, it's Spotify's trying to make more money for Spotify, not necessarily more money for authors. So, and again, like Spotify has learned with podcasting that like these things are not walled gardens, and you can't make them walled gardens. People aren't going to walk into said garden. So
well, or the audience that listens to music may not be the same that listen to audiobooks.
Yeah.
When I read that, I checked my iPad, and so this is a dramatic example, but last audiobook I bought, because I thought the book was so big, so I just bought the audiobook. That was Barbara Streisand's new memoir, which clocks in at 48 hours long.
Yeah.
So I'd need 4 subscriptions before I could get
right. Like, you know, like as a reader of sci-fi and fantasy, like if a book's under 15 hours, I'd be amazed. Other than like The Martian. Right. Something.
Yeah. All right, Jesse, cue up the music and let's talk to Jake Lynch. Jake, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
All right. You know what the first question's going to be. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
My one piece of advice to writers would be never, and I mean never, edit the story while you are writing the story.
Great
Okay.
advice. Yeah.
Because then you'll just get stuck in an editing loop and you'll never create the story. And then you'll end up wasting a lot of time, like I did when I first started writing. So never edit while writing. Write it
That's
first
a good one.
and then edit it later. I know it's uncomfortable, but please just get the story out first and then you can polish it up.
Right. Or the worst, if you're me, you would spend a week on that chapter and then finish the first draft and realize, I don't need that chapter.
Oh gosh. I've done that so many times.
Yeah.
I've done it so many times that I've just forgotten all about it. It's crazy.
It's probably better. Well, tell us about your book, Broken to Beautiful.
Yeah, so my book, Broken to Beautiful, it's a contemporary style fiction. So it's nothing too like out of the ordinary. It's not a fantasy or anything. It's a slice of life kind of story about a high school girl named Crystal who struggles with like suicide and depression and just kind of finding hope in life, just how to deal with these kind of problems in our everyday life. And she's a shy social loner who doesn't have any friends and she doesn't know how to make friends, like we've all been in high school, and high school is a very awkward stage for a lot of us. And so it's the book is a journey of her and learning perseverance and how to find hope amidst these like social problems that a lot of people are dealing with, and how she goes from broken to beautiful in a sense.
Interesting. Where did you get the idea? What was the inspiration for the book?
The inspiration was kind of unique. Like I originally started writing the story based off like a janitor, essentially. Like there was a janitor character that's in the story. And I originally was writing the story about the janitor, but the more I started writing it, the story started to evolve more around the main character named Crystal. And then it became centered around her, and I didn't want to change it. So I decided, let's just keep it from here and go forward with it. And that's kind of how it started off. Like I originally met a janitor on a train, which was kind of the original inspiration for the story, and how he was a super kind guy. And that kind of sparked something inside me a long time ago.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
So this is your first book.
That's
but
right.
you say that you are a full-time writer now? Yes.
Yeah. So
is this paying? I'm going to be really nosy. Is this paying the bills? Is it?
Not yet.
How's it going?
Not yet. I have two wonderful supporting parents that are housing me right now. So I quit my job to try and pursue this thing full time. And I've learned that trying to be a full-time author really is a lot of work. And so I'm always busy. I still work a full day like everyone else. It's just I'm not making money yet. I'm not making money yet. This is
understood.
The start of a long journey. So yes, it's okay to be nosy.
I saw that same bio, I think, and I have to say your hobbies would make you very popular with our boys. You like surfing and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and watching anime, right?
Yes, those are all very unique hobbies that I have gathered over the years, I would say.
Well, I've surfed. My oldest boy, Harry, is a Taekwondo expert, and I think all the boys like anime, don't they? Alan,
what's your favorite? What's your favorite anime?
Oh gosh,
can you pick?
I would have to say Naruto. That's the main one.
Oh, that's a standard. Sure.
Yeah, it's the standard classic. It's grown to be like a handful of my top favorites, but they're all like my favorites in their own way. Like one's a sci-fi, one's a one could be a thriller and that sort of stuff. But Naruto was my first one.
I even saw is it Ghost Hunter? There was a ghost.
Oh, like Hunter or something?
It was definitely
Demon
a ghost-based one.
Demon Slayer?
Demon Slayer.
No,
Demon Slayer
I shouldn't have brought it up because now I'm blanking on the name. I watched it so long ago, but it was so good.
Okay.
Minor diversion.
All right. So you talked about your lead character in the book. Now, the janitor was based on someone you truly met. Was your was your protagonist also based on someone that you know, or how did you find that lead character for the story?
I didn't have to think too hard about the lead character. And I'll admit there are a lot of personal elements from me within the lead character and even some of the other characters as well. So I didn't have to work too hard to develop the main character because I wasn't trying to make her anything totally different from me or whatever. And it was also my first book. So I was trying to write with what I know. So I'm like, I don't want to try and make someone who's totally different than me. They can be mostly me. I originally wrote the character actually a year after I started trying to write the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a notebook down and I just started brainstorming. I just started writing down characters, detailing everything about them from their personality, their how tall they were, what are their hobbies, what do they like. And she just was the first character that I created aside from the janitor. And I kind of just rolled with that, just taking her through. And the more I started working on her and writing the story, the more she developed and became something more than I ever imagined.
Well, what was your goal when you started this project? It's like you just suddenly started to write. No, there must have been some gestation period or something. What happened?
Yeah, are you asking me about my inspiration or what caused me to start writing?
Well, Lara kind of asked about or maybe she will. I don't know, but I'm asking, what was your goal with this book?
Yeah, my goal with this book is essentially to be a story that helps bring hope to people who are dealing with these kinds of problems. It's a story meant for the high school kid who's having a hard time making friends. And then they read this story and watch this person learn how to make friends, even though it is uncomfortable, but finding that there is hope in a lot of the hard times of this life. So that's my end goal. My end goal is to reach out to people who are struggling with some of these issues and to, give them a metaphorical hug saying it's going to be okay and that they can learn from this sort of thing. So it was there was a huge goal behind it from the very beginning. I didn't just write this story just to write it. I wrote it for them. This was not for me at all.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. We have quite a few aspiring writers in our audience. Could you describe your path to publication? Tell us how you got started, maybe what choices you made along the way.
Yeah, so the way that I got started writing is kind of unique compared to other writers. Some other writers will talk on how I've always wanted to write stories since I was in third grade. I actually was not like that at all. In fact, my upbringing was totally I wasn't very big on writing. English was one of my least favorite classes. I am sorry for any of my English teachers, but I had a hard time paying attention to that. I like doing math more. 2 + 2 = 4. I'm like, creativity? No, I don't do well with that. And so there's some backstory to this. So rewind to 2018, I believe. I was a sophomore in college and I had just finished my first semester there. It was a very, very stressful semester, but it was also around that time where I met a janitor on the train. And so the semester finished and I get this impression on my mind to write a book. And I'm like, oh, what if I wrote a story about a janitor? And so my story gets a little religious. So I apologize if that causes any issues, but and so I get this impression on my mind. I'm like, what if I wrote a story about a janitor who was a gentleman and helped people? And the idea didn't go away. And so I'm like, okay, this is kind of odd. So I'm like, I need to sit down and pray about this. So I go back home, I sit down, I just get quiet and I'm like, okay, I pray, God, do you want me to write a book? Okay. And at my church that I go to, bless you.
Sorry.
At my church, one of my pastors, Rick Warren, says that one of the ways to hear God speak is to read his word, read the Bible, and instead of just listening for him to speak to you verbally. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to try that. And so I'm like, God, do you want me to write a book? And then I flip open to where I was currently reading in the Bible. And I had actually gotten a second impression to start reading a specific book in the Bible around that time as well, which was to start reading the book of Isaiah, which is in the Old Testament. And prior to that, I was reading in the New Testament, like nowhere near that. And so I get the impression to start writing the book, and then I pray and I flip open to where I was reading in Isaiah. And the first thing that I read was Isaiah chapter 30, verse 8, which says, write these words down, write it in a book. And I look up and I'm like, okay, God wants me to write a book now.
Evidently.
And after that, I started writing. I started writing for an hour to 2 hours a day and had never done that before. I'd never written any stories before. Like I'm talking zero experience. And that's how I got started.
Now you
it's
mentioned
important to honor our gifts, I think.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you, but I had to follow up. You mentioned Pastor Rick Warren. Are we talking the purpose-driven life, Rick Warren?
I am talking about the purpose-driven life. Rick Warren.
Does everyone in the church write a book, or
No, there's not that many authors around here. And, I go to Saddleback every single weekend. So you don't find that many authors like that.
Well, yeah, but he must have given your writing credibility. You've seen that it can happen. I've read The Purpose-Driven Life, and I know a lot of other people have as well.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up under his teachings. I grew up going to Saddleback Church. It's my home church. I love it there. And, like Rick Warren has been a very influential character in my life, and I'm extremely grateful for him.
Very nice. And then when it came time to publish your book, how did you decide what path was right for you?
I had to do a little homework on that. I had to figure out how to publish my book. Like it took me 5 years to essentially finish writing the story. So once I finally got to that point, I had to do some homework and figure out whether to do a traditional publisher or to go self-publishing. I chose to do self-publishing because my book is religious in a sense. And there's a lot of like elements in there that I personally don't feel comfortable giving the rights to anyone else about that. And so I decided to self-publish it just because I don't want another person to dictate what the cover will be, what the title will be, and everything. There's pros and cons to both sides. I'm not saying traditional publishing is worse than self-publishing. There's actually good things to it too. But I wanted to maintain more of the control over the story.
Well, that's good. You did your homework. That's what we always tell people. Do your homework and then choose the one that's right for you.
Yep. Doing homework and just sitting on your computer looking up information.
Yeah.
I usually say, do your homework, come to WriterCon, and then write your book. But whatever.
Fair. He does say that. So full-time writer now, and you've already mentioned lots of hard work every single day, working a full-time job. What does your typical writing day look like for you? Like, what's your schedule? What's your process? Yeah,
my typical writing day is I'll start my work at like 7 a.m. and I'll write for about 5 to 6 hours, and I'll take breaks every 2 hours of doing the creative writing, just because that's a lot of emotional use once you're creating a lot of material in such a long period of time. So I'll take breaks every 2 hours. I'll go on a quick walk, have lunch, and then I'll come back, and then I'll actually, since I'm self-published, I'll try and do some marketing. So I'll try and post a video on social media, and I'll reach out to other podcasts.
There you go. That worked out.
Yeah.
I like that you pointed out that breaks are important. I know what I'm working on right now most heavily, it leaves me kind of emotionally raw and drained.
Yeah.
After I've worked on it for a couple of hours. So I do kind of need to step away and recollect myself.
Yeah. I noticed that you like to write supernatural stories a little bit.
I do. I write women's fiction, and that's what I'm trying to finish my next there, but I also write supernatural suspense. Yes.
That's really cool. That is really cool.
I enjoy it. I write what I like. to read. So
usually works best that way. So what about you, Jake? So first book down, what's next?
Yeah, so this first book was kind of a standalone for the time being. I'm actually working on my next novel called The Lost Saint. Like the full title is called Chronicles of the Lost Saint, and it's the start of a action adventure series, actually. So I'm tapping into the inner boy inside of me and be like, oh, what if I wrote an action story? And I'm having a lot of fun doing that right now. I'm going to do a lot of work with that in the future. So that's what I'm working on next.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful speaking with you guys.
You bet.
Nice.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Just a few parting words. Of course, I have to mention the WriterCon conference because, and big shout out and thanks to Anna Maddox and her husband and Zealot Marketing, but the new WriterCon website is finished. It's revised. It's up to date. We have a registration block ready to take your registration for the conference. And if you do it now, you get the early bird price, which will save you at least $100, maybe more, depending upon which one of the registration packages you choose. We've got more than 50 speakers lined up, authors, agents, publishers, book marketing experts, and so much more. Even if you're just starting out and think, no, first I need to write this book. Well, here are all these classes on craft writing that you can benefit from. If you're further along and you're thinking more about, I need to get an agent, I need to get a publisher, guess what? We got them there, and they are more than eager to talk to you. If you're at the marketing stage, we got that covered too. And the best thing is it's all in one place, and nobody's going to be nickel and diming you for more money for this and that. Once you're there, you can talk to any agent you want. You can talk to any publisher you want. You can talk to any person you want to get whatever you need to take your writing career up to the next level. That's WriterCon Labor Day weekend in Oklahoma City. So for more information, please visit the website, writercon.com. All right? Until next time, everyone, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.